In 2016, Saudi Arabia announced something that sounded almost absurd at the time: Vision 2030. A public acknowledgement that oil, that thing that had powered the kingdom for generations, could no longer be its entire story. At the time, most people focused on the flashy parts: NEOM, the line, mega cities in the desert. It was pretty easy to miss the deeper meaning of all of this. This wasn't about architecture or these crazy bold visions. This was actually about fear. The fear that one day oil would still exist, but power would have moved on without it. Fast forward a few years, and the most important construction projects in the Gulf aren't visible from a drone shot. They don't really look impressive on Instagram. They're massive sealed buildings in the desert filled with machines that never sleep, because power stopped being measured in barrels, and it's now being measured in compute. And some countries in the Middle East want to be a part of this. They want to help write this story that will impact generations ahead. So in 2022, OpenAI releases ChatGPT. Most people experienced it as a novelty, a clever chatbot, something kind of fun to play with. But behind the scenes, governments and boardrooms were treating this very differently. This wasn't a product launch by some tech company. It was kind of a warning shot. See, within just weeks of that announcement, demand for AI compute exploded. And suddenly the most valuable company became NVIDIA. On March 21st, 2023, NVIDIA unveiled its next generation of AI chips. And all of this signaled what insiders already knew. The world was entering a compute shortage. Countries weren't competing for oil anymore. They were competing for GPUs. By mid-2023, reports began surfacing that even wealthy European nations couldn't secure enough advanced AI chips for national research projects. Waiting lists were now stretching into years, and prices skyrocketed. And then something kind of unusual happened. Instead of being priced out, the Gulf started buying at scale. While Western governments debated regulation, Saudi Arabia and the UAE were locking in supply. Data centers were being planned not as commercial real estate projects, but as national infrastructure. This wasn't just about owning AI apps. This was about running the engine behind all of this. So in April 2024, Microsoft announces a $1.5 billion investment into G42. That's the UAE-based AI company. Now, on paper, this kind of looked like a corporate partnership, but in reality, this was a geopolitical signal. This was Microsoft saying something very specific. The Gulf is no longer just a customer of theirs, it's a platform. I recently interviewed Brad Smith. He's the president of Microsoft. I asked him, why does the UAE matter so much to Microsoft's AI strategy? And his answer stuck with me. Here's what he said.
When I was in Abu Dhabi last week, the two things that excited me the most were probably this. One, the Department of Health has a command center using AI built on Microsoft Azure. If you have to call an ambulance in Abu Dhabi, you're going to get routed, and your ambulance drivers are going to take you to the hospital that has the fastest drive, the best availability of doctors to help you as soon as you go in, the available hospital beds for your category of illness.
The UAE wanted AI sovereignty, and Microsoft understood that the next phase of AI wouldn't be owned by any single country. So all of this wasn't about copying Silicon Valley, but building something parallel to it. By May 2024, a new phrase started showing up in policy documents and closed-door meetings. It's this term called sovereign AI. The idea was simple, but the implications were huge. Countries no longer wanted their most sensitive intelligence systems running entirely on foreign infrastructure. I mean, think about it. Healthcare, defense, finance, even data about your population. I mean, that is not something that you just want to casually store in some other country's servers. AI had become just way too important to outsource. In Abu Dhabi, the Technology Innovation Institute had already been quietly working on Falcon. It's a large language model designed for control, open source, transparent, and adaptable. See, this wasn't a chatbot designed to go viral. This was a national asset. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia was expanding supercomputing capacity, building clusters capable of training models at a scale that even rivaled Western research labs. All of a sudden, intelligence was becoming infrastructure. In June 2024, something else starts to worry policymakers in the US and in Europe: energy. So by now, AI models are consuming electricity at crazy, terrifying rates. In some regions, data centers were straining local grids. Projects were now being delayed, not because of funding, but there just wasn't enough power. Now, in the Gulf, this wasn't a problem. Saudi Arabia and the UAE had something no AI hub in the West could easily replicate: cheap energy, massive amounts of land, and some of the best solar potential on Earth. Now, this is the part that people underestimate, because AI doesn't just scale on talent, it scales on electricity. And in a world where compute equals power, the Gulf had quietly positioned itself as one of the few places where AI could actually grow without too many limitations here. Now, by August 2024, concern in Washington had become harder to hide. The US had already restricted advanced chip exports to China, but now a new question had emerged. What if AI didn't move east or west, but south? What if the Gulf actually becomes the world's neutral compute hub? Now, from the US perspective, the fear wasn't that the Gulf was going to do something wrong, but it was that it was doing something so well while also maintaining relationships with both American and Chinese tech ecosystems. From the Gulf's perspective, this balancing act was purely intentional. They didn't want to choose sides in sort of a new Cold War. They wanted leverage with both sides. Just like oil gave Saudi one's geopolitical relevance, AI infrastructure could give them power. But here's the question we need to ask in all of this. Can you actually buy an ecosystem? Money can build data centers overnight. Money can buy chips in bulk. Money can import talent. But Silicon Valley was built by failure, chaos, and decades of cultural momentum. So in all of this, the Gulf is kind of attempting something unprecedented, basically compressing 50 years of tech evolution into like 10 years. And in some ways, it's working. Founders are moving, researchers are relocating, capital is flowing faster than anywhere else on Earth. So if oil once powered the global economy, many people agree that AI is going to power the new economy, the future of economies. And just like oil, AI concentrates power where infrastructure lives. You can kind of think of it like this. Compute is the refinery, data is the crude, and models are the finished product. Saudi Arabia and the UAE kind of understand this at a level that most countries just don't. And that's why they're trying to own the layer beneath all of them. If the era of oil defined the Middle East's history, the age of AI could define its future. And after watching the deals, the timelines, the chip orders, the energy investments, and hearing what Microsoft's president said, what he told me, you can really start to see that this is not a side bet. While things like NEOM are a bet, what it's doing right now with AI and with compute is a strategy to make itself undeniably important to ecosystems and countries around the world. But I want to know, what do you think? First of all, can AI replace what oil meant to a country like Saudi Arabia? And second of all, what does this mean for the US and China? Let me know your comments below, and while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe.
And then there's another service called TAM, T-A-M-M. It's Arabic for consider it done. Every city in the world has potholes. Abu Dhabi is the one city where anybody who sees a pothole can take out their TAM app, use their phone, take a photograph, upload it on the app. The geolocation goes with it. It goes to the part of the city government that then is responsible for filling the pothole. When they do that, you will get a message back, but they don't close out the issue until you, as the person who reported it, says, now it's fixed. That, to me, is the kind of benchmark that we should set for every government around the world. Let's use AI to save people's lives, to fill potholes, and address every other citizen service in between. That is why we don't go to Abu Dhabi to raise money, which is what other tech companies do. We go to the UAE to spend it because we're seeing it put to such good use.